Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 15. Well, this is the last week of the class lecture. You may wonder why we have tutorial 5 at the end of this class. The reason is I just wanted you guys to kind of concentrate on the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and just know how to kind of implement a website. Then, and I didn't want you to worry about, how to design for mobile web. So I wanted you to concentrate on those first, and at the end, before you turn in your project, I wanted to actually bring this tutorial and talk about how you can actually create a mobile website for your website if you wish. It's not required for your final project to have a mobile web part to it, but you could if you want to. You can just follow this tutorial, and I'm asking you to actually just follow section 5.1 and turning the assignment this week. So you kind of get an idea of how to design a mobile web. Just before I start this week's tutorial, I just want to let you know that the final exam will be due on December 9th, also your final project. The final exam will be available on November 30th, and it will be available online for you. It will have 60 questions, multiple choice and true and false. You will have 70 minutes to complete it. The chapters that you need to worry about is Chapter 4, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8, Chapter 9, and Chapter 10. You don't have to worry about Chapter 5, and you don't have to worry about the first 3 chapters because I've covered that in the midterm. So with that, let's start. So let's think about that you want to create a website that actually works on the mobile. So some of the things that we are going to cover in this chapter will be, we are going to be able to create a media query. We will also be able to work with the browser viewpoint. Also, we are going to apply responsive design to our website. Right now, probably you have a static design for your website, but we're going to learn how to create a responsive design for our website. And then we are also going to learn about creating a pull-down menu with CSS and create a flex box. So basically, these are the things that we will cover in section 5.1. The rest of the objective, it's for you guys to kind of, if you have time, but I'm not going to cover these sections anymore. The other parts is basically work with flex sizes, explore the flex box layout, how to create a print style sheet, and work with page sizes. Also to be able to add and remove page break. So, for your requirements for the assignments, only section 5.1, which is going to cover the first objectives that we just talked about. So up to now, we just created a single set of layout and design style for our web pages without considering what type of a design we would like to have our site. However, it's not very practical approach anymore, and a lot of users wants to access the web through their mobile devices. So as a web designer, we need to actually consider the need for those devices. So these guidelines are basically some important ways of how to design for mobile experiences. So we have basically the designing for mobile and designing for desktop devices. So as you can see, in terms of user experience, for the page content, for the mobile, content should be short and to the point, but for the desktop, content can be extensive and giving readers the opportunity to explore all the topics. So for page layout, you can see for mobile, content should be laid out within a single column with no horizontal scrolling. With a desktop, because you have a wider screen size, content can be more easily laid out in multiple columns. In terms of hypertext link, the links need to be easily accessible via a touchpoint device, but with the desktop, the links can be activated more precisely using the mouse pointer. So in terms of the bandwidth, sites tend to take longer to load over cell phone networks, but the desktop, normally you have high-speed network which can actually handle large files. And in terms of lightening of your pages, also this is something that you need to think about. Pages need to be easily visible in the outdoor lighting, because imagine you are going to open that website from your mobile devices, versus as the desktop, pages are typically viewed in like houses or home or offices and things like that. So in terms of device tools, mobile sites often need access to devices such as phone dialing, messaging, mapping, and built-in cameras and videos, versus as desktop sites, rarely they need to have access to the desktop devices. So these are some of the basically differences that you need to take in consideration when you are designing for mobile versus desktop devices. So we are going to actually talk about the responsive design now in more details. There are three primary components of responsive design theory that are being identified by Ethan Market. And some of those are basically, these are the design theory basically, are flexible layout, so that the page layout automatically adjusts to the screen of the different widths. Responsive images, that they can be rescaled based on the size of the viewing the device, and media queries that determine the properties of the design of the device rendering the page, so that the appropriate design can actually be delivered to those specific devices. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is introducing the media queries. Media queries are basically used to associate a style sheet or a style rule with a specific device. To create a media query, in our HTML document, we can add the media equals to devices. So where devices is a comma separated list of supported media types that are associated with those specific style sheet. So you will have all these different media types that are available. So this is going to show you this list of those media attributes that you might need to have. So the media could be, you can put media equals to print, media equals to screen, media equals to all, TV, or something like that. If you don't have a media attribute, the style sheet assumes to apply all the devices accessing the web page. So the media rule, media queries can be used to associate a specific style rule with a specific device by using @media_devices and then the style rule, where devices are supported media types and style rules are basically the style rules that are associated with those devices. Media query and device features. To target a device based on its feature, we can add the features and its value to the media attribute using this syntax: media equals devices and or feature colon value, where the feature is the name of the media feature and value is the feature's value. The and or keywords are basically used to create media queries that can involve different devices, or maybe different features, or combination of both. So basically this is showing you the list of features that are being supported by HTML and CSS. So aspect, ratio, color index, and you can see all of them have its description attached to it. All of the media features, with the exception of orientation, also accept min and max prefixes. So min it provides a minimum value for the specific feature, and max provide the feature's maximum value. Just one thing before I move on. For example, you can have so you can put the maximum width of for example 700 pixel. So that's what you can put, or minimum width of 200 pixel or something like that. The next thing that we are going to talk about is basically how to apply medium queries to the style sheet. The mobile first principle is one in which the overall page design starts with the base style that applies to all the devices, followed by the style rules that are specific to each of those mobile devices. Tablet styles are applied when the screen width is basically 481 pixel or greater. So as the width increases, we can add more feature or replace features found in the smaller devices. The desktop style builds upon the tablet style where the screen width exceeds 768 pixels. So as we said, the screen width increases, more features can be found in the small devices. So basically, in responsive device, it's kind of easier to add new style by using progressive enhancement than to replace those styles. So in here, we can see how to apply the media queries to a style sheet. So in here, we are basically saying media querying matching screen devices with the 480 pixels, maximum 480 pixels. This one, media querying matching with minimum width 481 pixels. And this one, media querying matching screen devices with minimum width of 769 pixels. Another thing that we're going to talk about is about exploring viewports and device width. So what's the viewport? Basically, web pages are viewed with a window called viewport. For desktop computers, the viewport is the same as the browser window, but for the mobile devices, that's not the case. The mobile devices will have two type of viewports. One is the visual viewport, the other one is layout viewpoints that contain the entire content of the page, some which can be hidden from the users. The visual viewport displays the web page content that fit within a mobile screen. So how to configure the layout viewport? To configure the properties of the layout viewpoint, we can use the media queries. We can actually use meta name viewport, and then the content, and then the properties that we are going to have. So this properties is basically the comma separated list of viewport properties and their values. So in this example, we have it as device width. So sets the width of the layout viewpoint to width of the device, basically. And the second part of it, the initial scale, 1 is basically, that means page doesn't automatically zoom out of the page. It initially opens by the browser. So remember, when we are creating a mobile design, we have to basically look at how the users interact with those mobile devices. So the users are going to be working with a small handheld touchscreen devices. So basically the important information that we want them to pull up needs to be easily accessible to them. So basically means that the home page on the mobile devices needs to be very clean and clear, and it shouldn't be very complex. So these are some of the principles of the designing that you need to take into consideration. So basically, you should also limit the choices that the users will have when they are actually using the mobile devices. So the next thing that we are going to talk about, creating a pull down menu with CSS. This is actually going to help with the navigation of your homepage. So what we need to do, we need to create a navigation bar, basically that will have those submenus that we want to have. With each of those areas, we will have a nested list of links to those specific pages. We want to put each of these nested lists with a class, which we'll call them submenus. So we are going to use the submenu in here. So first we need to basically hide each of those submenus so that we can reduce the length of navigation lists as it is rendered within the user's browser. We place basically the ul.submenu and display to none, which prevents the submenu unordered list from being displayed. And in here, you can just see that the submenu lists are basically hidden. Then the follower selector can be used to select a submenu that is immediately preceded by a hover submenu title. So we want to display a nested submenu only when the users hover the mouse pointed over its associated submenu title. So we can put a.submenu title, column hover plus ul.submenu. In order to keep the submenu visible, as the pointer moves away from the title and hovers over the now visible submenu, we can use this, basically this a.submenu title hover submenu ul. So you need to practice this. This is part of section 5.1 to see how it works. And then to make the submenu visible, we can change the display property back to block, resulting this basically display colon equals to block. We can display the submenu. So the other part that we're going to talk about is basically testing our mobile website. Of course, one of the best way to test a mobile device is to basically view it directly on our mobile device, but it's impossible to actually use all these mobile devices and the versions of them. So, and it's not a practical thing. So, and then another alternative is to have the physical device is to emulate it through a software program or basically the online software testing services. So every phone company basically provides a software development kit, or what we call it the SDK, that basically a developer can use to test their programs and websites. So here is the list of popular device emulator that you can use to be able to test your web page on it. Before we move on, I just want to mention another things. Basically, now the browsers are also having the device emulator as part of their developer tool. For instance, Google Chrome browsers, we can actually use the developer tool pane and basically test it there. So you can basically do that on page 360. And basically use the F12 to get to the developer tool pane and then follow the steps to be able to test that as well. Another thing is that we can also test the performance of our mobile site. Also by using the Chrome device emulator, we can also check for the network connectivity. So we can actually see the performance of our site and see it like in terms of different connections, Wi-Fi, DSL, 4G, and so on. We can test that as well. Again, if you want to make the changes that only apply to the mobile device version of our page, we can add the style rules with the media query for the mobile devices only. So that's something that we can add in here, that we want to increase the size of the navigation link for these for the mobile basically screens, and also hide the side element because maybe you don't want certain things to be shown if they are using the mobile devices. So that's it for the mobile devices. Now let's look at also the tablet devices. So we need to design for the tablet design as well. So basically, under the media query we have set up, we actually said that for the tablet devices, it can apply for a screen width that is greater than 480 pixels. So maybe sometimes we want to change the pull down menu, or we wanted to display rather than horizontal, we wanted to display vertically. So remember, for the mobile devices, the pull down menu we created was basically showing up horizontally. But since the tablet screens are bigger, we want to display them horizontally rather than vertically. We can also place the pull down menu list with absolute positioning. So basically you can place a submenu with absolute positioning by doing this. So in here applies the style rule only for this screen, so this means for the tablet design you're going to apply this, but for the mobile devices you're going to apply whatever rule that you had. So for the tablet devices, this is what you are going to have. So place the menu list item using relative positioning. And in here also you can add a drop shadow for each menu, and you can also use the absolute positioning, the submenu within each menu list. So you can do this by following the exercise, and you will see that how it will look like in the tablet design. The design will be different than the mobile devices. And of course, for creating a desktop design, we need to have some styles that we need to think that's important for the desktop devices. So we can actually put that at media only screen 769. So it can apply this style rule only for the screen devices with the minimum width of 769 pixels. So that's the desktop design that you're going to have. So whatever rules that you're going to put is only going to be for this media. So some of the things that we want to maybe do is, with the wider screen desktop, we don't need to hide the submenus in a pull down menu. So we can basically we can put the background to transparent. The box shadow, we want to drop it, so we can put to none. The display, we want to make the sub menu visible, so we want it to show it there. We can display all of the links from the navigation list. We can change the submenu background color to transparent, so it can blend with the navigation list, and we can remove the drop shadow that we created for tablet design. When we have a wider screen, we want to order to avoid long line of text, which are difficult to read. We can modify the layout of the desktop design so that the main article and all those comments that maybe the customer has are floated side by side with the same row. So we can basically, again, this is going to be for the bigger screen, for the desktop design. We are going to actually have the article have float the main article with a width of 55% and the right margin of 5%. And then we can actually use the aside here, float the aside element with a width of 40%. And in that way you can actually try that again on page 369. So the the desktop design will have basically a different look than the tablet and the mobile design. So for the desktop design, we will have the navigation list expands to contain the floated content. The submenus are laid out horizontally and they are actually visible, and the article and the side elements are arranged basically into two different columns that we put in. So it's going to be a different look than the tablet and the mobile devices. So this concludes section 5.1, which is what I'm asking you guys to follow it and submit the assignment.